Hello, 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 everyone. How is everyone doing on a slow grind Tuesday? Higher, closing above some key levels. We should see some follow through. Hey, P Dub, original P Dub. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Good day, Magic Mike. Thank you. Well, good day. What should we call? What's a good name for P Dub besides P Dub? Patrick, good afternoon. Hey, Gary. Once again, we wait on another make or break message from the Fed. It's trade the Fed always. Come on. You don't want to trade the market, you want to trade the Fed. Holy smokes, slow grinder. From William, thank you for being here, William. Evening, Anissa. I got 0.0 P and L today. Is that good? Well, hey, you don't have to trade every day. William wants Walmart. Let's see. Let's get through some stuff and then we'll bring on the Bob real quick. Oh, Coco, what do you mean Fed speak is BS? You want more Fed speak, Coco. I know you do. Today, by the way, real quick, and then we'll bring on Bob. Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index still negative, but a little better than previous. And Service Index still negative, but it's sort of a pretty decent jump up, but still negative there. And that's about it. Tomorrow we have durable goods. Remember, jobless claims are tomorrow because Thursday is the holiday. So pay attention to the numbers coming out at 7:30 Central. Then 8:45, 15 minutes after the open, we have the S&P Composite PMI Flash, the services and manufacturing numbers. And then at 9, instead of what would normally be on Friday, the consumer sentiment final numbers are coming out Wednesday because of the shortened trading date on Friday. Then we have crude numbers, and in the afternoon, FOMC minutes. So it is actually a busy day, one day before Thanksgiving. In case you forgot or are overseas, no U.S. markets on Thursday. Decent rally in the mega caps. Oil, nice big rebound there. Everything bullish today in the sectors. Still 75% for the 50 basis points. Still in greed mode. Autodesk had a gap down. HP was slightly down. And that's about it. S&P closing above that 62.5. So watching for follow through. By the way, I did check the recent over the last few years. Fridays, more often than not, the last few years been a down day. So depending on what, and tomorrow's slightly up bias. So take that into account with managing positions and stops. Depending on some levels we hit tomorrow could really warrant tightening up stops. Cycles now turning up on the daily. With that, P-Dub, Polly Walnuts. That's right, Polly Walnuts. By the way, if you are new here, please do subscribe, ring that bell, and hit that like button. All right, let's bring Bob on. Let me get this out. Hold on. I messed up the buttons. Mike messed up. There we go.
Polly Walnuts.
Polly Walnuts, and we have Bob. No brick wall Bob.
No brick wall today.
You look actually like you got a haircut.
I got a haircut. We're in, I don't want to say vacation mode, but a lot of stuff going on, so I didn't pay too much attention to the markets today. I was glad that the holiday is coming when it did. So I am here for questions and questions only. If you guys have no questions, I will talk to you next week. So what do we got?
I got a question.
Good.
Crude.
Shoot.
What's going on with this price Russian floating the price cap thing around? What's the latest on that?
So the number that's being floated out is $60 a barrel. The launch of said program to coincide with the ban of the ban of Russian crude imports from the EU, or to the EU, I should say. I don't know what sense this makes. You know, one of the things that people don't realize is that crude oil is not fungible. There's different types of crude oil. Russian crude oil is a heavy crude oil, which can be used for anything except It's costly to refine into things like gasoline. So one of the things that happens is China and India can basically alone consume all of the crude oil that Russia creates and still need light sweet from the US and other sources. Saudi Arabia also has some light sweet. So, from that perspective, it may mean nothing when the EU bans crude oil in terms of supply. However, India and China both, according to reports, we never know if any of that stuff's true, um, already kind of curbed their consumption of Russian crude under pressure from basically, we'll call it the G7. We don't want to call it the Allied powers, but basically from the G7. So if that continues, you could actually see some weakness there, in which case you wouldn't necessarily need a $60 cap. One of the things Russia did at the initial stages of the conflict is crude oil shot up to 130.40 in the WTI, higher than that on Brent, and then stayed in the high 90s for a while, and Russia just discounted that. So you ended up with Russia getting a discounted price for their crude, but it was higher than they were getting prior to the invasion. So the invasion ended up being net profitable anyway. I, again, don't understand how they could possibly enforce a price ban through insurance because Russia will just self insure. In other words, they'll say, look, if you don't get your vessel, we'll send you another one. That's what self insuring would be. And that would actually take supply off the market, bringing the price higher. I mean, if there was ever a case where they had to sell two tankers because one was lost. It also spawns tons of conspiracy theories as to if a Russian tanker is lost or damaged at sea, as to who did it, right? So it's too complex, in my opinion, to work. But what it will do, I think, is add a ton of volatility to crude oil prices.
More volatility in the world, just what we need.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Just what we need. William, question for Bob. Thought on Walmart stock right now with holiday shopping coming?
Honestly, in terms of the Walmart stock, I would defer to Mike for the chart. Now, if you ask me what I thought about the actual store itself, I think it's probably going to do fairly well. One of the things that Walmart is known for, obviously, is price cutting. They've got that game down. So as people spend into the holidays, which they likely still will, they're going to be going to some discount stores. You see the current sort of weekly strength and monthly strength even that we've got in Walmart's chart. Take a look at something like a Dollar General, for example. Dollar General has had sort of that same weekly strength. Not the exact same, because I don't think you're necessarily going to go get Christmas presents and Hanukkah gifts at Dollar General, but you might. Dollar Tree, for example, will have some of that similar sort of pattern to it, right? So you're looking at basically a discounter going into the holiday season that I hope, for their own sake, hasn't necessarily over ordered on inventory, because they might have a really hard time if the selling doesn't actually the buying doesn't actually materialize. So I'd be careful. I like Walmart as a company, but I wouldn't buy it until there was a substantial pullback. Actually, Mike has the pullback marked where I'd like to buy. I can't read what it is here, but it's basically at that rotation, or that the highs of that rotation into the rotation zone preceding this pop. Yeah, that significant level right there is where I'd put a buy order in. But I think Walmart does better. Their stock has historically done better of the retailers in recessions, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a profitable trade or investment. Better might be down 5% while everybody else is down 20%. I just don't like retailers in general.
Oh boy, see now, Bob, you picked the wrong shirt to wear.
Why? What?
Bobby Blue Balls is on today. P Dubs is playing with fire. P Dubs,
he
but he's
he
trying to get
sort of
it in.
took it back. He took it back a few down there, if you see. Then he
Oh,
went changed to boats and nose. But you know why I wasn't responding to any of that? He doesn't even know how to spell my name. It's just
see,
not.
if I should spell the name right if I'm going to play. And he was trying to get you because he knows he won't see you till next week. So he was trying to. He was.
Not going to get me. Not going to get me today.
See, this is why we can have a little more fun here. What's your biggest win on any futures trade?
Um, 90 grand. I assume you want to know the dollar amount. If you want to know the percentage, I can't calculate it. The trade was designed to make $2,000 and it made 90 grand. So I don't know how to do that. it was
It's
it was in way in excess of what it was supposed to do, and it was after the second plane hit on 9/11.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you had a trade designed to do 2 grand and you made 90 because you couldn't pull it off, probably you couldn't close the trade
Well,
out.
it was a little bit of that, but we were actually running a system that had time constraints. We were supposed to exit the trade after 2 business days. It's actually kind of an interesting story. We got in the trade prior to the first plane hitting, and trade started going our way as the second when the first plane hit, unfortunately. But our exit was 2 business days on the close. That was our exit. So later that day, when the second plane hit, the trade was now $90,000 possible, and they announced are profitable, and they announced that they were going to close the exchange for 4 days. So I said, well, what are we supposed to do? I mean, we don't, you know, all the research was done with the premise that there were never 4 consecutive days where an exchange is closed. That's still a thing. It's really a banking regulation that is extended to the exchanges. You can't have banks closed 4 consecutive days. But this was sort of a force majeure kind of event. So the exchange was actually closed for 4 straight days. And we thought the responsible thing was to exit at the close of that day, which we did. When we came in the next day, it would have been up about $900,000.
I got a question
But
on tie-in separate
Mike, you
from.
can guess what interest rate that was, what interest rate direction that was in, I think.
I got a question for you though, because you brought up something. Banks can't be closed for 4 straight days, and therefore the exchange. Is that why we have to be open on friggin' Black Friday?
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Be-
See, now P Dubs here said something that I don't really like. He said impressive, nice work. There was no talent or skill or anything done there. For all I know, if there hadn't been a terrorist attack, the trade would have lost the $1,800 that was allocated to the loss side of things. So there's no compliment there. I mean, honestly, I had an investor at that time who sued me for not holding it for 2 business days once he found out what it would have been. And the first judge, it was really a mediator, threw it out, saying you were supposed to make 2,000, you made 90,000, you're not damaged, you can't sue. Threw it out. But there's no compliment deserved there because I didn't really do anything. Just there was a horrible event that happened to turn interest rates my way. So anyway,
yeah, I know somebody who had a short position going into the crash at 87, and they would have had to take it off, but they were on a plane.
mm-hmm. I know
So,
somebody like that too. It might be the same person.
and when they landed, they're like, cha-ching. But if they had been not on a plane, they would have been out way earlier. It would.
Yeah. I know a guy, 87 crash. Well, I haven't talked to him in years and years and years, but 87 crash. He had an out trade. And because there were no cell phones, no way to reach him, he was actually in Chile on this like weird trip he was going to take. And his clerk just kind of didn't do anything about it. And the out trade ended up making him $25 million. Mikey, he never traded more than a 5 lot after that the rest of his entire career.
Well, see, he was smart then because he's like, how many people make it big and they attribute some magical skill they had to, and then they keep going, and then they blow themselves up. You
And
know,
that's why I'm so adamant about saying I did not deserve any credit when, when P-Dub said, nice work. No, I didn't do anything. Not at all.
so uh, Bob, what should we expect from the FOMC meetings tomorrow morning? Well, first, they're not in the morning; they're in the afternoon. Well, I guess it depends on your time zone, but technically, they're at 2
Yeah.
p.m. Eastern.
We
What?
have an early close tomorrow, don't we, or no?
No,
I think stocks. No,
stocks
we
are
don't.
short day on
Friday.
Friday, and
Friday.
futures are normal tomorrow. Or I have to double
Mm.
check. I have to double check that. But I thought,
I have to point out here, Mike, that I have to point out here that P-Dub said, I said, nice job before you disclosed that it happened on 9/11. So that's fair enough. So what should we expect from the FOMC? I have no idea what to expect. What I would look for is conversation about any sort of conversation about what evidence of an inflation slowdown looks like. I heard a really interesting conversation. Cameron Dawson, who's been on our podcast, was on CNBC with that idiot, the judge. He is an idiot, Scott Wapner. And he was basically saying, what if we don't have any kind of landing at all in the stock market? And she kind of looked at him and he goes, what if we don't have a hard landing, a soft landing, just the Fed hikes rates and we just continue to go up and, and then they cut because there's nothing wrong. And she goes, okay, so you're saying, I shouldn't say it like this, but you could see the look on her face. And I know her, so I kind of know what she was thinking. She's like, if there has to be a landing for the Fed to stop hiking, otherwise they'll keep hiking. So if there's not a hard landing, that means inflation is still runaway. If there's not a soft landing, that means that inflation hasn't budged at all. Why would the Fed stop or cut rates if employment didn't budge? They would just keep going with rate hikes. Maybe not at 75 basis points a crack, but they would likely just keep going with rate hikes. Now, I don't agree with they would just keep going because they'd get government pressure because of the service of debt. But right now, you look at what's happening, everything's been lower the last couple of days on a yield basis, except for like the 2-year. So the servicing of debt is getting easier, not harder, right? So, I mean, I guess I kind of understand what she was saying there. So I would look for any sort of description, Gary, no, it wasn't Gary. Who said that? Rich Beast? Who asked what the
that was
FOMC
Bob. That was
question
George.
Ah, Georgie Porgy.
Geo Mission George.
Yeah, Georgie Porgy. Yeah, I would just look for any sort of hint that what a slowdown in price pressure looks like for them. All right. And any sort of conversation about length that they're going to keep rate hikes in place. But I don't know that we're going to get much out of the FOMC tomorrow. If they mention that prices have already begun to moderate, I think the market would react to that.
Boy, the 10-2s are just going.
Yeah. Was it 76?
Minus 76.5 settlement.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a big one. Let's see what else. Gary wants to know, when will technology bottom?
I couldn't give you the date, Gare. Yeah, I would say that it's going to be weaker in the first and second quarter. I would say that's honestly what I would say about it. I think the Fed has to stop raising rates for technology to bottom. I would say that's the first sign of it. But when that happens, I honestly don't know.
So, Coco wants to know if you're still long.
Yes.
Yes. There you go. Patrick, per World Gold Council, central banks made a record purchase of gold in Q3. Is this a warning about currencies or global inflation?
Probably currencies. I think we're already worried about global inflation. Gold's not a good inflation hedge. Like if you look back at the times that inflation was spiking, gold didn't do very well because what happens is the Fed raises rates into inflation and then you get yield. So you no longer want to buy an asset that produces no yield for the average person. As we all found out on the podcast on Friday, there is a way to get yield off gold. But um, anyway, I don't know if that's an I don't honestly know if that's an accurate business model or not. I don't know. But so when yields go higher, which is a sort of a byproduct of overactive inflation, then gold becomes less desirable. So it's not a really good inflation hedge. It's a good, they're printing money hedge. It's a good fiat currency is at risk hedge. So I would say it's more of a fiat signal, but I don't know that it's either.
George, is this for me or Bob? Mike seems so careful setting up trades and probabilities. Could he enjoy himself in Vegas?
Don't send Mike to Vegas.
Actually,
Do not. He spent
I used to
enough time
count
there counting
cards.
cards. I know.
I
He
can't
spent
go
too much time there
into
counting cards.
some casinos. Uh, so I mean, it's all probabilities. That's what I actually. It's wonderful to. I mean, that's what I like it. Futures will be open on Thursday and Friday. Futures are open on Friday. They open Thursday night again for what we would call the Globex session, but they're closed during the day on Thursday. Is the dollar a bubble?
Yes, but it's not ready to burst yet. It's not
So
ready yet.
it's a bubble that's
The
not
dollar's
ready to burst.
overdone. I mean, calling it a bubble is kind of silly, I think, but it's just overdone. And at some point, the Fed's going to be the first central bank to slow and possibly pause. So that's likely when the dollar kind of cracks. So
And where could it return to? Wow.
it's probably quite a bit lower.
Yeah, won't that uh let's see. FTX will be allowed to keep the identities of its largest creditors private for now. The judge overseeing the cryptocurrencies exchange bankruptcy case has ruled.
We're not going to know Ghislaine Maxwell's people either. So whatever.
Yeah. You know what?
That's what you want. You don't want people to know that something they're involved with is at risk. You want to keep that quiet.
I don't know
So
anymore.
stupid.
So any other thoughts since we won't see you for a few days? Any other parting thoughts, Bob?
No, I mean, my stance is well known in this webinar. I think we probably have a continued mild rally throughout the fourth quarter, finishing up into the holidays, and they'll be calling it a Santa Claus rally, even though it began in the middle of October. I think that just continues. I don't think it's going to be anything earth shattering. And then I think we go into next quarter and you got to worry. I really do. It doesn't mean anything's going to drop in January. It doesn't mean it's going to drop in February. But, a lot of the big banks have put out a little bit higher targets for the fourth quarter. So brave of them as we go higher to push their targets up. But most estimates are talking about bad earnings in the first quarter and second quarter, and earnings expectations haven't come down yet. And it's going to depend as much on the Fed. So, my stance hasn't changed. So I don't know that I have much more to add. I just wanted to recap it for those who might be new.
All right. Well, thank you. You have an enjoyable Thanksgiving.
Thanks. You too, Mikey.
And
I'll talk to you guys next week.
We will see you next week.
Yep.
All right. Hey, everybody. Is the market open Friday? Yes, it's a shortened trading day on Friday. Equities close early, so it's a shortened trading day. Also, in the last few years, it's actually been a pullback day. So consider that with managing stops. Just going to go over a couple things. I don't have forever to stick around today. We did close above that 62.5, the 39.99. So I'm going to be watching, especially for follow through tomorrow, 4,033 to 4,050. And right above that, we have the 200 simple and 40.59 from the remaining target from the inverse head and shoulders. So cycles are definitely turning up today. So that's what's key. And now if you're watching for overnight price action with this, the key pullback level on a bigger pullback would be roughly about 39.91 would be major support that I'd be watching for, especially with the rising 4-hour rotation zone, and then it's 39.81 on any pullback levels. So those are your up and down levels. I saw Sterling ask before, was this a bullish engulfing day? Yes, it had a lower low and a higher high. It looks like it's going to close. It looks like it did close beyond the candle bodies. A stronger bullish engulfing is always when it does close above the prior day's high, but this closed above the prior day's open. I was watching to see if it closed above the prior day's high because that would be a %B buy signal. So that's what is going on there. The next levels I'm watching on the NASDAQ, 11,823, then 11,897. All right, and on a closing basis, 11,843, with cycles turning up on the daily. The key support is roughly back. I'm utilizing this harmonic around 11,676. Mike, since this has been an outlier year, do you think the scale of tax loss harvesting this year will result in a sharp decline sometime in December? I'm not as bullish as Bob. I think we will get a rollover in December at some point, and that could lead to, if we start getting a rollover, I do agree that people trying to offset stuff with tax loss selling could especially be pressure at the end of the year. Also, it could be interesting with taking profits of some things and some things off the table still in an up year for anything that's still up, which is few and far between. So that is my take. I think again, I'm going to trade the patterns and everything else. I would not be surprised to see a potential rug pull at some point. Dow, marching higher. Got the green close above the 62.5. My next target area, 34,700 to 34,783. Key support now, 33,760. That's what I'm watching. Remember, it looks like, and could this even get back to the 35 area? Yeah, it could. It could before we get another rollover play. So we'll have to just see if that happens. That would just be trailing stops from here. Gonna watch tomorrow how the Russell reacts to the 200. Nothing else to talk about there. Even the DAX just grinding higher. Still watching this 14,600. Notes were inside day, holding the rotation zone. Still watching for it to confirm. This might get some price action tomorrow afternoon with the Fed. If anything's interesting at the meeting minutes, but this 112.22 area is short-term very key. Dollar index, little pullback, but inside bar, pulling back straight to that key level we had highlighted. So my key support now, if we do break lower overnight, 106.50. The VIX, finally, what was the low today? Ooh, 21.28. Did not check that after. So no double, no potential reversal double. That's off. And the double top completed. and within shooting distance of the 87.5 to complete those probabilities. And then you have a gap fill. So that's what I'm focusing on tomorrow with the VIX. Crude technically triggered an aggressive buy with daily cycles at the bottom. So, gonna watch for follow through on that with a tight stop level. Thinking if there's anything else. Bitcoin bouncing Bitcoin today, but technically we have a triple bottoming pattern which slightly favors the continuation, especially right against the rotation zone. Won't it be interesting if some other shoes drop with the holiday, with Thursday and Friday and the weekend, if we get some interesting crypto fallout over that time period? But you can offset gains also. And that's a question I'm not getting into. I'm not even getting into advice with tax accounting, because everything depends on how long you've been holding, the duration of your trades, your overall positioning. And I am not, and nor would I ever even pretend to be, a tax accountant. I hate taxes from the standpoint that it's so friggin' complicated. It drives me insane. So I'm not even going to comment, because if it goes into long-term capital gains, depending on your positions, then you have, if you're a pattern day trader, there's a whole bunch of things to take into consideration. So I'm not even going to pretend to comment on that. That's why I have an accountant. Thoughts on NVIDIA? I would not be surprised to see this with a continued rally to come up and tag the 200 before a substantial rollover play. What am I watching before that? Is if we get into the double zone before that. But this, if from a long perspective, we pulled back to the rotation zone and a rotation back up, and this was a %B breakout buy with confirmation into the close. Next level is 162.79 for a closing basis. Then I'd be watching for a potential double top, but that would just be to trail a stop. The potential double top I'd like to be in place, because then that would give me a key area that, hey, don't mess with it until it triggers a downside from a short standpoint. Daily cycles turning up on that also. So if you're already long, I would be trailing a stop from my perspective. If you were looking to get long, this triggered a buy, but based off of risk reward. It's really, because my stop level, or my first targets to raise stops would be up here, so it'd be pretty close. If you're waiting for the close to do something, or tomorrow's open, you might be off on your risk reward. See, don't forget the 1% deferred tax. See, this is why there's always so much crap. Can we just, why can't we make the tax code easy? You know what? Just have a national sales tax. Then I don't care how you make your money. You spend more, you pay more. If you know what, if you're doing something illegal or illicit and not reporting your income, you still have to buy stuff. Can we do something? The tax code isn't about not all just collecting taxes. It's about a way to keep people in line. They don't want to make it easy. By the way, in NVIDIA, you have a gap up. Jeez. Yeah, I would not be shorting NVIDIA yet. Yes, eventually it will be another good short setup. PDE's going through the roof. This thing's getting overdone. But that does not mean it's a short setup. Any advice on futures? It's all taxed on short term. But again, check with your accountant. Futures is easier to deal with from a tax perspective than stocks, from my perspective. I hate getting into tax stuff. Especially, I do not want to give any incorrect advice. I can technically analyze the market all day long. The tax code gives me an instant migraine. Tesla, a little pause there. We have one more thing, and I'm not going to then go into much else. I have to do stuff. Wife's been at the range all day training. So I have to deal with dinner and all 5 dogs myself. I'm thinking about buying SPWH since the fundamentals are good. I have not looked at, I mean, it's got a low P to E. I think it could be, you could be doing something as long as it does not break down below that $8 area. Let's just see where this sits. Yeah, but you know what? I wouldn't. This is interesting. This is actually interesting. I'd keep a tight stop just above that $8 area. Why? Prior resistance becoming support, tested multiple times. You can even bump this down just a hair on a weekly basis. You know, this could be a tight stop play, but you have a lot of overhead resistance too. So, I don't know. See, yeah, it's got decent fundamentals, but I'd have to look at the trend of how their growth is, how their expenses are going into this. You might. I don't know if I could get even proper reward to risk in here. I mean, they got earnings coming up, so then it turns into an earnings play in the beginning of December. From my perspective, I'd probably stand aside being within this key range because I don't think I could get a decent reward to risk at this point. My key target would be back at about just under $11, and I'd have to have a stop at 8, and we're trading just under 10. So I couldn't get proper reward to risk from my perspective. Now, if it holds that support back there again, it could be interesting. If it holds that $8 support there, and I could keep a really tight stop. CNHI. CNHI, on the other hand, hopefully if you were looking at this, you already spotted the double because the double's already played out, even on the nearly played out in the aggressive. Would this be a buy here for me? No, because it's played out the double. You have a fair amount of overhead resistance right up here. Besides this one little gap week down, you have a key overhead resistance up here and supports all the way back at 13. So unless you were already long this, would not be touching it. Now, if it stalls out up here, you can keep an eye on this little mini double top that could be invalidated on a run up. But this is another example. Daily cycles getting to the top against major key resistance, weekly cycles at the top, and it's got into overbought zone. Could it be another potential play back around 13.20? Yeah. Would I be playing it here? No. Couldn't get from my perspective, again, reward to risk. And when I can't get reward to risk, I don't care what it does. If it can continue, it's not my play. Because I need trade expectancy, which is probabilities and reward to risk. And if reward to risk is off, doesn't matter if I miss a trade before I take a trade with incorrect probabilities and reward to risk. So, forgot to highlight that too. Where we sat with volume today, the volume even lower than yesterday. So we're definitely look at the trading volume there. All right. That's where we sit. I am going to wrap it up today. Everybody, I will be back tomorrow morning. Remember, 7:30. Do not ignore 7:30, especially with these thinner market conditions. Just a recap, we got durable goods and you got the jobless claims. So if there's a big miss or beat, that's what I'll be watching for. That could matter to the market. If stuff's in line, all right, but that's what I'm going to be watching for, is either a big miss or beat. And in lower volume conditions, consumer sentiment could be interesting also. So that's 30 minutes after the open. You got a lot of stuff right around the open here between the S&P composite, manufacturing and services, and the Michigan consumer sentiment in low volatility. If any of these are big misses or beats, you could see some pressure to the markets either way. So, all right, with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. I will be back at the normal time tomorrow morning, and I shall talk to everyone later. Bye for now.